Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cherry Johnson. I'm with Watauga County Arts Council. And one of the things we do is we work with other organizations in our community. And I guess recently we've kind of been re-energizing a long-standing partnership and friendship with the High Country Writers. A lot of new developments in our relationship with that organization. And I have with me Judy Gary and Anita Lehman, both from the High Country Writers. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is focusing on a big project that the High Country Writers has been putting a lot of energy and time into in the last several months. Judy, what was your role with the first version? This is this was put out about 2 years ago. It's the Headwaters, an anthology of High Country Writers. Has about 33, we counted them, different pieces in it.
I did the design. I did the typesetting and put the cover together from a photograph that Reese Strasser, one of our members, who is a fine photographer, and has contributed photographs to both versions of the anthology. So I worked with the editor and the authors and with Ree on the design of the book.
Right, and the editor of this one was Nora
Lurie Percival, who is 100 years old today. Happy birthday, Nora.
Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday for sure. She's a special icon in the writing community in this area.
She is.
Now, she edited this particular version, and that isn't what made her 100.
No.
Which is good news for Anita.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Anita Lehman, this is the soon-to-be cover of the second anthology.
Oh, yes.
And you have been the editor of this one.
Yes, I was the associate editor on the first book. So I guess that's why I'm now the editor of this one. And this has been a really interesting process. I've enjoyed it.
And it's, you said 38 pieces this time?
Well, there are well over 30. And probably 38 to 40. From some 20 plus authors.
Okay, now do you happen to either one of you remember how many authors were involved in this?
About the same number.
Okay, all right. Now these authors are all members of the High Country Writers, correct?
That's right.
And this is an option, I'm assuming, because your membership is larger than 30-something.
Oh, yes.
So they submit to it? Is that what happens?
Yes, they were encouraged to submit either prose or poetry in a ready for publication.
Right.
And then a committee was formed. 2 people from the committee read and edited each piece and then determined whether that would be accepted into the anthology or rejected.
Now what criteria would they have used?
Well, the criteria, although we hadn't written criteria, we felt that they were understood. Something that would be interesting to everyone who would be reading it.
Right.
Something that, was something that grabs you, something that those that in the group, those that were editing, felt that it was really worthy of putting into the anthology.
And ready.
As we said, publication ready. But we did not do any censorship.
Okay, and that was something that we were talking about a moment ago, is this one's a different kind of an anthology from the previous one.
Yes.
And each of them would be different because of different composition of pieces.
Right.
What would you say were the differences?
Well, this one, and it's because of the submissions. It's because of how our membership has grown.
Right.
We have more young people in the group now than perhaps we did 2 years ago. And there are pieces that are more challenging both in subject matter and perhaps language than in the first one, only because that's what was submitted. And they were well written and interesting and ready for publication. So they might not be exactly what everyone would embrace, but they're certainly worthy worthy of inclusion in the anthology.
So the overall components make up a slightly different character.
Slightly different character, I would say. This one's slightly more challenging.
Interesting. Do you think that's reflective of the changing times? I mean, this is 2 years ago versus now. What do you think?
Well, it could be, but I really feel that it's the change in the people in our group.
Composition of the people, yes. So now let's talk about High Country Writers. The organization is how old now?
Since 1995.
Okay. And describe it, one of you.
There are the main goal is to value the process of writing. So we have authors, editors, designers who all support writing as an art. All of us are doing some writing, but we focus on different things. And from a group of about I think originally in 1995 it was maybe 6 people. We now have over 70 members.
Wow.
We have approximately 30 to 35 attending each group, each meeting, twice a month at the Watauga County Library. We have second and fourth Thursdays.
Right.
And at this point, we are doing also a series of workshops.
Right.
The first Thursday morning at the Arts Council building at the Blue Ridge Art Space.
Right.
And we do the Arts Council has been supportive from the very beginning of the literary arts as an art, but we do really appreciate being able to meet there at the Arts at the Blue Ridge Art Space.
Well, and that's one thing, a good point to make about the Arts Council is that I just finished recently an interview with dance. I bring in musicians, I bring in visual artists. Writing is as much an art form to us as anything else, you know. So that is something I think sometimes people don't include that in their thinking when they think about art. They don't necessarily include literature or writing, and it is most definitely an art form in our perspective. Also, storytelling, that's one we didn't mention. So there are multiple facets to the definition of the word art.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So now, Anita, you've been working on this how long? How long is this process taking you to get this together?
We began talking about it, I believe, in January. And then...
That's not so bad. This is October.
Well, yes.
It's only 10 months.
Not so bad.
Right. Birthing a baby.
Yeah,
Almost.
Very much like that.
Right. Well, first of all, we talked about it, got the feel for who wanted to do that, and it seemed like it was the thing to do. So we put together a committee, and it was volunteer. Some of the people who had been on the committee for the previous edition. And then we solicited manuscripts, began to receive manuscripts, did editing, returned the manuscripts, asked for a final copy. And so it just by the sheer reason that things were turning around and turning over, it took several months to get that done.
Now let's talk a little bit about these definitions of these words, because I think that even for me, and I'm more closely associated to the art form than some folks would be, the word, writer, everybody kind of gets that way. They've got this mental image of someone who's usually using a computer and typing or putting in some kind of something from within them. Okay, what is an editor?
Well, Judy and I both are editors.
What is an editor?
An editor can do several things. An editor can just look at whether you have content that is consecutive throughout the book, that stays within the storyline, doesn't deviate, doesn't go off on a tangent somewhere. Or the editor can look at, do you have the proper grammatical usage throughout? What about the use of the language? Or is it appropriate for that time period? Or for this story, is that appropriate? Or is it consistent? Judy?
Well, I see the editor's role as removing the barriers between the writer and the reader, and really helping the writer polish up the story that they believe they wrote when they did their first draft. So anything that gets in the way of the reader really understanding and internalizing the story that the writer wants them to see. Sometimes that's, well, here's a detail that the writer is taking for granted that the reader needs.
Right.
Sometimes it's a use of language or grammar that perhaps would detract or get in the way. Although one of the things with fiction and dialogue, and you'll see that in this book, is sometimes there's a voice that's decidedly ungrammatical, but it works.
And it's supposed to be that way.
It's supposed to be that way. Oh yes, it's the character.
Right.
So it has to. The character has to come through, as well as the as it being easy to read. Anita does more nonfiction than I do, and I do maybe a little more fiction.
I was just sitting here thinking about the versatility of editors, because there's so many different writers with different styles, different all kinds of things, and you've got to be able to work with that particular one and help them convey what they're trying to get across, not necessarily what Judy wants to put across or what Anita wants to put across. You know?
No, it has nothing to do with
What we want.
me, and it is very time consuming because it requires multiple readings, really getting immersed in both the personality of the writer and the manuscript.
Do you ever get to the end of the process and just get sick of the piece?
It's so you have probably taken on something that wasn't really your forte. You know, that's one of the members of the committee who was proofing pointed out that within the anthology, within the same author's work, that two different stories had very different patterns of language and punctuation.
That's a versatile author.
And it is, well, it is, because he was writing in the voice of his characters.
Right.
And so not only do you have to be aware of the author's voice, but also the character's voice.
Interesting.
So,
now, what's a designer, Judy? You said you were a designer.
well, I've been editing for Ingalls Publishing since 2001. And in that process, initially I would work with designers in the design program.
Right.
There's a design suite that has different programs, and you use it for creating the interior design and the cover design.
I.e. computer programs.
Right, computer programs. And I started out sitting beside the designer, finding out what could happen and how. And so learned to do it first by learning to make corrections in the documents that another designer had created, and then finally started doing them myself. And so the traditional process of learning by doing from someone who already knows, essentially apprenticeship. And I also am fortunate to have a son who has a concentration in digital imaging technology from Rochester Institute. When I get stuck, I can call him on his cell phone anywhere, and he can get me out. He can tell me how to. He knows it well enough to tell me how to do what I want to create. What I want to create.
Now, from a novice standpoint, what I hear when I hear designer is physical arrangement. Okay.
That's basically it.
Okay. Because that to me is almost a visual arts term.
Right.
So, now what other parts are in this as far as people that have played a role? You mentioned someone else a while ago.
The committee. Well, the committee. The committee members.
The review committee. Yeah.
Well, and she mentioned Reese Strasser, who has provided some photographs for the cover and for other portions of the book.
So there's a lot of different pieces. Keep going.
Well, the committee, let's see, Jessie Cook and Wendy Dingwall, Sue Spirit, Nora Percival,
Lissa Brown, Judy Geary.
Well, yes, and Anita.
You two were involved.
Yeah, we were involved. We were on the committee, so yeah.
Yeah. So those, and I recognize all those names but one, and they are names that are well known in this community in the literary arts, you know, in various ways. And I think that's something very special, that you've gotten folks that obviously have experience and expertise in the field and a diversity within that group.
And I think that's why they volunteered, because they had done it before. They're writers. They're interested. They're excited about this.
Now, why bother to do an anthology with the High Country writers?
Good point. I think the whole spirit of High Country writers is contributing to value the literary arts. So we value each other. We value what we're each doing, and therefore we're willing to throw in some work in order to make that come through, and to create a physical manifestation of what we're doing in our heads all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So we can share it with everybody else, which we will be doing at the Arts Council. Yes.
Right, yes. We're, as you know, the Arts Council has a second Saturday celebration every month. And normally we celebrate our 4 gallery openings, which are the 4 different galleries in the building. And of course we have the gift shop open. And we have a different artist of a different discipline in each of the classrooms. Well, this time we're kind of breaking the mold. And we're going to have authors in all of our classrooms. But as they've just described, the diversity within those authors is obviously going to make it interesting. You're not going to run from one to the next and feel like you've seen it already. There's going to be different personalities, different points that each one will have, strengths and interests and a way of presenting themselves.
And poetry.
Now, what will the authors be doing that night?
Well, they will. Most of them will have books that they of their own that are published that they will be available for sale and signing. Some of them may bring. Well, there's one author I know that usually brings her Swedish lace cookies when she. Now she may be upset with me because I think I've committed her to
it.
Yes, but there are other authors that are represented in the anthology who also participate in other arts. Bill Baldwin is a wood carver.
Right.
Neil
is a musician.
Is a musician and a potter. So we have. Perhaps they will have some of their other arts, but they'll certainly be ready to talk to our guests about the writing process and about their interests.
This is interesting. So we expect to have several of the artists, authors, at this, and the book will finally be available?
The book will be available by the 8th.
We're crossing all of our fingers and
all of our toes. We're supposed to get the first copies the 1st or 2nd of November. So we're.
Where is this printing process happening?
South Carolina.
Okay.
We are pleased that you can do that. We're using this CreateSpace, the subsidiary of Amazon, for the printing.
So, Anita, will you at that point take a long vacation?
I probably won't take a long vacation, but I might hide away.
Or maybe go do your own writing for a change.
I might do that, yes. I've been inspired by these authors.
I'll bet.
Oh, yes. And one of the workshops, I should bring that out too, is we learned so many things in our workshops, and one of them was on poetry, forms of poetry. And we wrote some poetry that I've not done before.
That's high school anyway.
I was thrilled that, yes, it really flowed. So I'll be looking at some other things.
That's great. Now, do you have pieces in this anthology?
I do not. No,
I do not.
This time. Not this time.
So this is not a self-promoting thing.
No.
This is
No, I definitely was the editor.
Now, what is your own writing, Anita?
Well, mainly memoir.
Okay.
Yes. And as Judy said, I stick with nonfiction.
And Judy sticks with fiction.
I stick with fiction.
You have how many books?
Just two young adult novels and a curriculum.
Oh, that's what I was
about
thinking,
Gederich, the Danish captive in ancient Rome. So I'm sure my characters are standing around tapping their feet right now.
What has happened to her? She's lost.
Yes, I haven't paid attention to them in a little bit longer than I should. But
so
we welcome people to come to our meetings.
Yes.
Yes.
And we welcome people to come to our workshops.
Right.
And one of our workshops for high country writers grew into a workshop that'll be available to the public. Is it November the 11th? Yes, November the 11th at 7 p.m. at Blue Ridge Art Space. We're doing a workshop on independent publishing, how to, and it's free to members of the Arts Council and to members of High Country Writers.
Right.
For the public, it'll be $20, and that is a benefit to the Arts Council.
Right.
So that's a way to, if you're wondering whether this is doable for you, this is, and you've got some, particularly if you've got something written.
Right.
This would be a good way to explore that.
Or even if you know someone that you're encouraging to publish their work, this would be a good way to learn about that and to help them along the way.
Yes.
Now, what does it take to be a member of the High Country Writers?
Show up.
Those meetings that Judy has mentioned are the second and fourth Thursday mornings at the Watauga County Library at 10 o'clock. Now, you can come at 9:30 and have coffee and chat for a while.
Might be worth
and
doing.
Get to know a few people. And that really is good. And come and visit one of our meetings or two, and our dues are very reasonable. $15 a year.
Wow, that is reasonable.
Oh, very reasonable for what we do. And the information that you'll get from speakers, critiques of our own works, and then now workshops. So we actually have 3 meetings every
you do.
month. The first Thursday.
3 opportunities every month.
Yes, well, that's what it is.
It truly is.
The first Thursday at the Arts Council,
That's great.
second and fourth at the library at 10 o'clock.
Okay. And now the evening that you can get exposed to the anthology itself for the very first time, have it unveiled before your eyes, is coming up on November the 8th. Is that
Yes.
right, Judy? And it's from 5:30 to 7:30. And it will be a celebration not just of the visual arts, but also of the literary arts, which I think is a really cool marriage of sorts, or partnership of sorts. So I think that's really neat that people will have an opportunity. So we'll have folks there that are interested in both, and one or the other, and they'll be exposed to the other.
Yes.
And enjoy that new dimension in the arts. So
Yes.
thank you both for all that you're doing to promote the artists and the arts and the literary arts in particular in this community. I know that being writers yourselves, you want that to be encouraged, but I think it's also, you could be spending this time writing your own stuff.
But it's encouraging to be with other writers on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
Keeps you moving forward.
It does.
It must.
And thank you so much for including us
Oh yeah.
in the Arts Council program.
Yes.
It's a given. we just,
Okay.
we just
you.
think that you're part of the game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, you can be part of this group.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dimensions to the arts in Watauga County, or everywhere, but the Arts Council celebrates as many art forms as we can find to celebrate. And along with the literary, if that's not your cup of tea, maybe visual is, maybe music is, maybe something else is. You need to come and be involved with the Arts Council and find out about all the cool things that we're doing and all the different versions of the arts. The High Country Writers has a website. It's highcountrywriters.tripod.com, right?
Right.
And the Arts Council has a website, which is watauga-arts.org. Check these websites for information about all of this and a lot more.
Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.